So, what we're talking about today is something that I have found that has been incredibly important with a number of our clients who have been dealing with employee retention issues. Now, to be clear, I am not an HR person. In fact, the talk is titled Waving a Flag Worth Following, and then in parentheses, or non HR retention techniques. What I can tell you though is that having worked with some clients on these things, they have found them to be incredibly helpful and they have made an enormous difference in some of their meetings. So I thought it would make sense to package this together and share it with as many people as possible because I think they might learn a lot from it. You don't have to worry about taking notes. We are going to be recording this. We'll make the recording available. And I wrote an ebook on the entire presentation, which I'll give you the QR code link at the end, and you can download the ebook and it'll have the information in it, actually in more detail than what we're going to talk about, but fewer stories. So let me open by asking y'all a question. When was the last time that you asked yourself, is that all there is? Now, this is a little self-serving because Is That All There Is was the title of my last book. But that's not why I'm asking the question. I'm not asking, is that all there is about the lunch you just had or about your vacation plans? What we're talking about, what I mean is the big stuff. Your work, your life, your direction. Because if you've asked that question lately, congratulations, you're right where you should be. You're right in the zeitgeist that we're all swimming in. Not only are you not alone, but you are doing what everybody is doing, whether they have the same opinions, values, beliefs that you have or not. More importantly, you're exactly where your employees, the people you work with, are right now. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that I think put it about the best that I've read. They wrote, "We may not all be in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. Some of us are on super yachts. Some of us just have the one oar. We are all dealing with the same issues, just in different ways." Somewhere around the end of the COVID pandemic, you remember it, we were told that we were in the Great Resignation. Some marketing guy came up with that name and every publication used it. But to be honest, that phrase has gone the way of fax machines and MySpace. We've moved past resignation thanks to a number of things that are happening: the uncertainty of the economy, the uncertainty of the world, the uncertainty of the market. The people in your business, the people in your organization aren't just looking to leave, but they are looking for something, and they're looking for something worth staying for. And that's where the challenge and the opportunity lies, because despite all of the digital transformation, all of the algorithmic advancements, all of the global connectivity we have, the truth is simple. People pursue purpose. People pursue purpose. People still crave meaning. They don't want to feel like another username on your Slack channel. Retention today isn't about HR perks. And it's not all the stuff that we all saw in the WeWork movie. You know, ping pong tables and hot and cold running espresso. It's not meditation apps. It's not free lunch. It's not stock options. Those things are expected. They've become table stakes. What people want is to wave a flag that matters. Better yet, they want to follow someone who's carrying one. I want to do a quick temperature check with you because I don't know you. I was about to say that well, but I don't know you all at all. So raise your hand if you've ever had a job you couldn't stand. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for that. Okay, wait, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Raise it. Now keep them up if you couldn't stand the job, but you stayed in it anyways. Okay. Me too, by the way, don't worry. And keep your hand up. Keep your hand up if the job felt paid well enough that for where you are in life, you had to keep it. Okay, good for Crystal. Now, keep it up if you felt valued in that job. Yeah, see, now, Georgie, you're one, because that's what I thought. People leave, not for less money, but they leave for more meaning. During the Great Resignation, what we heard was people don't leave jobs, they leave people. Or people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And that happens. There are toxic bosses and there are toxic people. But people leave not because of what they get, but because of what they don't get. Now, we talk about these changes now like it's something new, but people in the real estate business, they have talked about these changes for a long time because they talk about why people sell homes and why people buy homes. And they call it the 7 Ds. There's divorce, downsizing, disease, disability, disaster, debt, and death. And then if you add dissatisfaction and disappointment, you've got the full 9-yard sprint towards change. And people will change because today they can. They have opportunities they never had before. And that's worth looking at to figure out what you can do about it. Why is this happening now? And there are 3 reasons. Number 1, democratization of information. Everyone's got access to knowledge. If you're not offering growth, someone else is, probably on TikTok. So I'll tell you a little story. A few years ago, we had a client we were working with, which was a fast-growing tech startup. And exactly the stereotype that you know, office, open office, espresso 24 hours. The founders, here's the key, the founders called themselves Chief Disruption Officers. It was exactly what you expected, but the product was clever. The pitch deck was amazing, and they were flush with investor cash. They had more money than God, but they had one problem. They couldn't hold on to talent. The founder, I don't want to say who he was. We'll call him Jake. He hired us because he thought he needed to fix the branding because he had heard people leave because of that. So we talked to everyone in the company. We needed to understand who they were. And as we talked to employees, the truth started to leak out. It turns out that behind the hot and cold kombucha and the curated playlists, there was a culture of 12-hour workdays, toxic Slack threads, and a real problem with a leadership team that treated feedback like a personal attack. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And interesting is always a euphemism. Jake was so frustrated by the Glassdoor reviews that he was getting, he decided to take matters into his own hands. So late one night, he posted a glowing 5-star review using a pseudonym. Best job I've ever had. The founders care deeply. The culture is unbeatable. Come for the challenge, stay for the growth. He might have gotten away with it, except he started giving himself kudos, referring to Jake in the third person. But as you guys know, the internet has a nose for nonsense. And within no time, within days, an actual employee responded, not just with a counter review, but with screenshots, Slack threads, exit interviews, and a list of 8 employees who had quit in the past 3 months. As happens with these things, the post hit what was then called Twitter, then LinkedIn, and the industry message boards lit up. Venture firms took notice. And this single attempt, he only did it once, to mask the problem with manufactured praise didn't just backfire, it blew up. The company didn't just lose credibility, they lost their next round of hires. In one case, a candidate literally turned down a job offer on the way to signing it, citing the culture thread that he had just read. So what's the takeaway here? You can't fake your way to retention. You can't Glassdoor your way to trust. Today's talent pool has more access, more transparency, and more leverage than ever before. Authenticity isn't the buzzword. It's not a campaign. It's a prerequisite. Trying to attract people worth keeping, you need to be a company that deserves to keep them. Number 2, globalization. Talent is no longer tethered to geography. The best person for the job might be sitting on a beach in Bali. I can give you a better example. One of our clients was a Midwestern software firm, and they were having problems struggling to keep their UX team staffed. Local talent was too expensive and competitive, and their turnover was high. And they were good guys, but they took a leap. They decided to expand their team internationally, and they brought on 3 coders based in El Salvador. My business partner was from El Salvador, so he was able to help them meet people down there. Now, they were not a big global brand with offices in Madrid or a dedicated HR team. This was a small, tenacious firm that started out in a strip mall office park. But they did one thing right. They trusted their new hires from day one. There was no micromanaging. There was no forced time zone overlap. They gave them goals, tools, and freedom. Yeah, they used Slack for their daily check-ins. They use Loom to record walkthroughs, and they use virtual whiteboards and Google Docs for keeping real-time collaboration. But the design sprints that had once dragged out over weeks were done faster and better. The Salvadoran guys, the designers, weren't just checking boxes. They were contributing ideas like they were in the office. They were challenging assumptions, and they were improving the product. When I asked the founder what he believed was what had changed, he said, we stopped trying to manage the clock. We started managing the mission. Productivity didn't just stay steady, it improved because the team felt seen, because trust travels farther than time zones. And I mentioned to you that my partner was from El Salvador. Before you think I'm throwing stones, this was a huge problem in our firm too, because he was the business guy and he was obsessed with numbers and timesheets. And just to illustrate how the disconnect happens when you're staring too closely at the spreadsheet, that's the story that I heard. I don't know if it's true, but it should be, about a hedge fund that buys a dairy farm. The partners descend on the place like analysts at a shareholder meeting. They take notes, they crunch numbers, and they dissect the operation in meticulous detail. They analyze the barn layout for asset depreciation, but they do understand that that's where the cows sleep. They tour the feedlot and they propose supply chain efficiencies, but they get it. That's where the cows eat. They inspect the milking machines like they're evaluating capital equipment, but they know what milking machines do. They assess the water systems. They check out the ROI on the veterinary office, and they even run a cost-benefit analysis on the hayloft. But then one of them notices that there's a huge expanse of rolling green, and it asks what it is. And the farmer explains, those are the pastures. That's where the cows spend most of their days. They lie down, they digest their food, and they're cows. So the hedge fund guy, who of course was from the big city, he furrows his brow, and later that afternoon, he huddles with the team, and they come back with a bold new strategy. We're going to keep the milking barn, and we're going to keep the feedlot, and we're going to keep all of that. But let's sell the pastures. We can have a real estate play because they don't generate any income. Now, the cows just stand around. That's what happens when you manage people like line items. When you forget that rest, creativity, contemplation are part of the process, not inefficiencies to be trimmed. When you deal with people like they're a business, that's what happens. And then point 3, speaking of dealing with people like they're a business or a machine, is computerization. Machines do what machines do best. People, meanwhile, want to do what only people can do: create, connect, and contribute. So at our branding firm, we had a planner who automated part of our research processing using some clever macros she had written. That freed up time, but it also allowed her to use that time and that insight in a way that mattered. She pitched an entirely new campaign concept based on the inputs the rest of us hadn't seen. The computer gathered the data, but she made meaning. And those aren't HR trends. They're existential shifts. It's that important. They don't just affect where your people work. They change why they work. When I was in high school, I was a trumpet player, and our marching band was good enough to get to perform at Disney World. To get us to Cinderella's castle, we were ushered through the service corridors that run beneath the Magic Kingdom. And guess what? Backstage at Disney World is not magical. It's messy. I saw it firsthand. I was down there. I even saw a guy in a Mickey Mouse costume with the head off, and he was smoking a cigarette. Yes, high school. It was a long time ago. My hair was black. But think about what that means. The guests, they never notice the sweat. They don't see the seams. They don't see the frayed wires. What they see is magic. But today is different. Your employees don't need a flawless performance. They need to work with a leader who's honest, engaged, and willing to admit that they're figuring it out too. Seamlessness is overrated. What people want now is sincerity. So I want you to do a little exercise with me, if y'all don't mind. On your notepad, on a scrap of paper, write one word that kept you at your best job ever. Just one. Let me open the chat. And if you don't mind, I see the chat. Okay, here we go. So Crystal says the people. Jasmine says fun. Great. Mark says value. Family. Thank you, Georgie. Now, I want you to take that word. I want you to underline it. I want you to circle it. Joy. Beautiful. Oops, sorry. Just kicked the computer. I want you to circle it. Because here's the thing. You all wrote this, but that's what your employees, that's what the people you work with are looking for too. In the last session that we did, I can share a few of them with you. There was autonomy. There was recognition. There was purpose. These aren't HR terms. These are human needs, and they're what people stay for. And think about it. The words that others wrote would work for you and vice versa, because we're all in the same ship. So the question becomes, what makes work worth doing? Of course, we know it's money, feed our family, pay our rent, pay our mortgage, pay whatever. We know that. But there's more, because we live in this weird space between algorithms and elbow grease. If y'all have read the book Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari, he reminds us that humans bond through shared struggle. Narratives are not built in spreadsheets. They're forged in moments of growth, moments of learning, failure, and recovery. Let's get closer to home, since I'm was in the ad agency business, and some of you are too. Most ad agencies keep their new business wins and losses locked behind closed doors. Leadership actually tends to share the wins with everyone, but they keep the losses quiet, kind of like a family secret. I think the logic was always, why broadcast failure? But those of you who are in the business probably understand why this makes people feel locked out. You probably feel the same way. We tried something different at our agency. We did things a little differently. Every Friday morning, we hosted a full agency breakfast. Everyone from the creative director to the newest intern was there, and we talked about everything. Pitches we were working on, client issues, ideas, campaigns, and even the business we lost. Why? Because people can't feel like they're part of the mission if they only get half the story. We knew that if we wanted our team to care about the wins, they had to feel connected to the effort behind them, and maybe even suffer the losses just a little bit. So one morning, I remember we shared a big pitch we had lost. It stung. But the conversation that followed about what we learned, what we do differently, and how we showed up galvanized the team. It was, by the way, it was for Babies R Us. It would have been our biggest account by far. And I had a great relationship with the CEO, but we still didn't win. But once we talked about it, we came up with all kinds of solutions. The designers who weren't even involved in the pitch offered ideas for the next one. The junior account folks asked questions about strategy. We didn't lose morale, we gained buy-in. Now, I would love to sit here and tell you that this was like a rom-com, and because of that, we came up with a new breakthrough strategy, and like the boyfriend who runs down the down the airport and jumps onto the airplane with an armful of flowers at the end of the corny rom-com, we won the business, but that didn't happen. We didn't. But when you share the full picture, failures and all, people feel like they're part of something. They feel trusted. And when they feel trusted, they get invested. It was a whole new way of doing business for us. And that Friday morning also generated great ideas. On Friday, one Friday rather, we were talking about a presentation that we were doing for a client, and we had polished and packaged this presentation within an inch of its life, specifically because we'd found the client had a very short attention span. And at our Friday run through, one of our interns, he'd only been with us a few weeks, I think, he was doodling on a napkin in the back of the room. And I'm a doodler myself, so I wandered back to look over his shoulder. And when he saw me, he said, why don't we just animate the client's origin story? Like a comic book, like this. And then he showed me the napkin where he had done a little storyboard. Everyone was quiet. And then people started to nod. And then there was some buzz in the room. And we scrapped the whole big presentation that we had done, and we pitched the comic book. And the client bought it. The intern hadn't been boxed in by industry norms or expectations. He saw it clearly because no one had taught him to look away. We started to call that a napkin sketch insight, or a napkin sketch. And eventually it just became a napkin. We'd do a pitch and someone would say, what's the napkin on this? Because the best ideas often come from the edge of the room. And when people on the edge of the room realize that their ideas are valued, they move towards the center. They become part of the bigger picture. They get invited to share them because purpose isn't a buzzword. It's oxygen. Now, Harari wrote that shared belief systems, from gods to religion to money, enable society to function. Purpose is humanity's ultimate glue. Another great book called How by a guy named Dov Seidman draws attention to what he calls resilience by design. Purpose-driven structures that can withstand shocks. Employees connect to why we do something rather than just what we do. And they are better equipped to weather change. We worked with the healthcare brand where the billing clerks were called care continuity specialists. They knew that even though their job was to generate income, it could never be at the expense of patient relationships. And that shift alone made people feel like part of the core team, part of the healing process. Our client said that this program increased their retention by almost 30% in 9 months. Think about that. Think about what that means. That being part of the process, being part of understanding the flag that they were flying, gave them a reason to be involved. So I want to ask you all a question. Who or what was your flag? What was the flag you planted in the ground? I'll give you my example. For me, it was my dad. He was a general contractor, and he didn't love red tape or budget meetings with the bank, but he believed it was worth it because what mattered to him was well thought out inner cities. He believed they could shape people's lives. And that's what he was helping to build. That was his flag. So, little exercise for you. It'll just take a minute. Create your company's flag. Take a piece of paper, take 30 seconds. I'm going to have a drink of water. And I want you to describe your company's flag or your flag, your rallying cry, in a sentence. Don't worry about copywriting. You have as much time as you want to fix it. But if it sounds like a mission statement, if it sounds like something they hang on the wall by the elevators, it's not a flag. This should be something that you feel here. And when you're ready, we can either share them or, you know what, once again, we can just share them in the chat. There's few of us that we can all see them. Okay, here we go. Make people feel seen and heard. So, Crystal, that's beautiful because not only is it something for you to do, but it's something that affects the people you deal with, similar to what my dad was doing, making sure that people had this opportunity. I take care of things. Great. Take it off my shoulders, Mark. I'll always be knocking on your door. That's a beautiful thing. If that becomes the flag, then those are easy things to follow. It makes it very easy to make decisions. Pardon me, because you know what lives within your world and what does not. And it makes it very easy to have people follow you because they understand what is expected and they understand where they can find purpose. They understand why this matters. What I love is that neither one of you said how you do it or what you do. This was all about why it matters. So thank you for that. Let me give you some clear, actionable strategies that you can put to work for you, for your company, to keep your best people. I have a friend, her name is Dr. Mary Kelly, and she was in military intelligence. She was a military intelligence officer for years, and she developed the ARMED system, obviously armed because it was in military intelligence, and it's used on American bases in the Pacific. ARMED is obviously an acronym. It stands for A, attract, recruit, mentor, evolve, and develop. Now, I'm always very clear to give Dr. Kelly credit for this because she wrote it, and this is what she does on these bases, and she travels around the world showing people how to do it. But I kind of I translate it through my own lens. I added a little bit to it. So how do you attract the kinds of people, either from other departments or from outside your environment, into the company? And it's quite simple. You brand your job search, your job titles beyond job requirements. You use stories, not specs. Sure, specs are critical sometimes, specific degrees, specific knowledge, specific experience. But what matters more is finding people that fit within the stories you tell. Use stories, not job specs. R stands for recruit and retain. Interview like you're scouting collaborators. Skills and experiences are necessary, but they're cost of entry. Start looking for curiosity, for grit, and for a sense of connection. Mentor and manage. Ditch the hierarchy. Build guild-like systems, like back in the Renaissance. Let apprentices learn besides masters. Now, here's a fascinating thing we figured out when we started doing the guild system. The apprentices and the masters used to be graded by age, but not anymore. Quite often, the master is the younger participant and the apprentice is older. Certainly when you're dealing with, replacing my battery here, there we go. When you're dealing with technology, it's quite often that the younger people know more than the older people. You need to have an environment where people feel comfortable working in both systems. So let apprentices learn besides masters. E, evolve. When the world shifts, pivot people and responsibilities within your environment instead of pivoting them out. It used to be that when you had a new job spec, you would find new people to do it. But the world is changing so fast, jobs are changing so fast, that often it's better to give people the sense of comfort and stability and allow them to learn how to deal in new environments, which takes us right to D, which is develop. Offer mastery tracks and pay attention when someone says, I want more. Ask yourself, what does the person truly want? What are they willing to do? What are we willing to let go of? Remember, when you peel back the onion, we're all pack animals. We're all wired for stories. And so here are three that you can use. We've talked about them. Harari had what he called cognitive revolution. We rose by telling stories that united strangers. What story can your team share and then join? Seidman talked about systemic resilience. People stay when they carry a piece of them of the system with them into the next storm. Remember, the Wall Street Journal said we're all in the storm. So if we allow people to use the connectivity that we provide, the relationships that we provide, but use that as they advance instead of moving to a different location, moving to a different department, but stay within a team and advance there, we reap the benefits. And finally, we talked about the napkin sketch. It's the insight you never saw coming. And it often arrives from someone who never learned the rules, because value doesn't come from inside the box. It doesn't come from the term people love to use, outside the box. It often comes from people who are not aware there was a box at all. And that can only happen if they feel like they can move from the outside into the center. Once they do, they feel valued, and they feel the things you guys said. They feel joy. They feel like it's a sense of family. They feel like they're valued, Mark said. They feel like they're having fun. They feel like they're staying with the people, because you can build this connective tissue within your organization. Quite simply, transparency over facade. Don't worry about glass door, build glass walls. Flexibility over procedure. Just because y'all haven't done it before doesn't mean you shouldn't do it now. Look for the solutions that will get you where you want to go. Purpose over paycheck. Again, don't kid yourself. Money matters. We all look for more, but it's not enough. Purpose is the glue that holds us together. Authenticity over polish, like being underneath Disney World. Let them see the seams. Perfection doesn't build trust. Honesty does. Story over stats. Numbers inform, but stories inspire. And only one of them actually sticks in people's hearts. If people aren't waving the flag, it's not because they're fickle. It's not because they don't want to. It's because they haven't been given a flag worth holding. And as I mentioned, if you need help with this, I wrote it all down for you. I see that Crystal especially has been taking some notes, but I have it all here for you. I'm going to put up, give me 1 second to share the screen. Just move this over. Share screen, here we go. So I did a little ebook for you guys. Can you see that? So if you
Yes.
thank you. If you shoot your phone at the QR code, or you can use the link if you want. It's talk.ac/Bruce Turkel !code, sorry, equals AFWF. And AFWF stands for a flag worth following. It'll bring up a little survey. What did you think of this? How did I do? Blah, 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 because I want to get better at it. I'm not selling anything. There's nothing that'll follow that up. But also you'll get the book. And as I said, it's 17 or 18 pages, and it goes through all of these systems. It explains how to do all of these things. And I think you'll find it useful. And then tonight, what I'd like you to do is ask 3 questions at your dinner table, or if in your next team meeting, or if you carpool in your commute. But I'd like you to think about these 3 questions. Number 1, what story are we telling about this work? Is it honest? And does everyone buy in? Do we give people the opportunity to buy in? What story do we tell? Is it honest? Is it authentic? Is it true? Is it real? And do we give people the opportunity to buy in? What flag can we wave that others want to follow? Then when you figure that out, drop the script, get rid of the PowerPoint, don't use the keynote, just tell the story. And when you do that, you can set your people free to march towards meaning. When you provide meaning, you provide a workplace that offers a competitive difference that very few people can offer as well. Thank you.